accounts a week hacked into. Now, it never said that Merritt hacked into anything. It said that he just had access to it and took the money in what was perhaps the most dynamic round of testimony so far in the Charles Merritt murder trial. An expert witness brought in by the defense severely undercut a crucial element of the prosecution's case, casting considerable doubt upon, if not outright obliterating, what has been offered by the district attorney's office as motive in the brutal Mcstay family killings. Moreover, testimony by that witness, computer forensic analysis Brian LaRocque, taken in conjunction with testimony by PayPal custodian of records Sarah Kane, definitively established that the individual the defense team alleges is the actual murderer had obtained fraudulent access to one of the victim's business accounts and the funds therein after the homicides occurred. In addition to solidifying the defense's assertion that this alternate perpetrator, Dan Kavanaugh, had a motive for killing the family, LaRocque offered a compelling indication that Kavanaugh was actually in San Diego when the murders occurred, even though he said he was in Hawaii. That controverts the alibi that Kavanaugh previously asserted, and which law enforcement officials heretofore have accepted. So, heretofore, if anybody doesn't know, is before now. So they never really checked it out, is what he's saying. That they have accepted it before now. Consisting of his claim that he was in Hawaii when the Mcstay family was killed. According to the prosecution's version of events, Charles Chase Merritt, driven by financial desperation that grew out of his unbridled gambling addiction and utter lack of fiscal discipline, which does not make him a murderer, engaged in a series of thefts from Earth-inspired products. The company, owned and operated by his business associate, Joseph Mcstay, I can talk, I can. Through that company, Joseph was selling high-end decorative water features, artificial waterfalls and fountains, which he and Merritt designed. So, himself a check for $7,495. That sounds like a commission percentage to me. When he learned what Merritt was up to earlier, shortly before, or perhaps even on February 4th, 2010, Joseph Mcstay came back, especially if they designed the fountains together, so they must have been a good pair. Maybe the confrontation was more like, look man, you gotta get it together, we're about to really earn that. I'm gonna have to report you, just to kind of get him on the straight and narrow. I could see that. And he probably didn't approach him pissed, because if Merritt had the ability to kill, he would have killed him then, out of rage. So obviously, I just don't think he would have then gotten so pissed to go back and kill the entire family. It takes one person, right? There's one mindset for somebody who kills out of anger, alright? And then there's another person who kills an entire family, children. And Mcstay had a daughter, Merritt had a daughter. Mcstay did not look like the type of person that'd walk in. I mean, he may be pissed, but he looked like a cool cat, man. He was just a good, like I could see him going, man, I think you gotta get it together. And, maybe he had been there before. Maybe, he just wanted to help his friend, because they were so good at making, obviously they were great at making these fountains, because they were paid, like they had a $9 million job coming up. So, Mcstay was like, dude, we gotta get it together, because we're good together, and I need you all there. I can see that being plausible, a lot more plausible than him going and then coming back and killing the entire family. That just doesn't sit right with me. This blaring evidence saying he killed his wife Summer and their two sons, 4-year-old Johnny and 3-year-old Joseph. Secreted the bodies for 2 days in the meantime, which is not, that wouldn't be right. Because remember, the parents were found almost perfect. They had no decomposition because of the desert. There's no way he kept them in his house. And yet the children were, really, badly decomposed. Which also doesn't make sense. But he wasn't hacking. He was accessing them because he had the code. Right? I mean, you either hack into it or you access it. Now, fraudulently accessing it is accessing it without the approval of the main holder on there. Well, when I had my business, my dad was the main holder on my QuickBooks account. Every time I put money, was I fraudulently accessing that as well? And it says that, within a few days, by the way, after he had closed the account, I guess he then reopened the QuickBooks account. In February 4th and February 5th, and again on the 8th, apparently, issued himself checks made to him for a total of $23,855 again. So all of the money he took out of that account was only $23,855. That sounds like a commission or to buy supplies. You don't steal $23,855. You steal $86,000, $85,000, $90,000, but not $23,855. Sorry. Okay. I got back to the story. I'm sorry. So then Merritt then transported the corpses up into the San Bernardino County side desert, an area with which Merritt was familiar from having grown up in Esperina, where he attended Apple Valley High School for 3 years in the 70s, according to the prosecutors. There, in a remote area between Victorville and Oro Grande, on February 6, 2010, he buried all 4 of his victims along with the 3-pound sledgehammer he had used to bludgeon them in shallow graves he dug in a wash-off, rarely traveled dirt road, according to the prosecution. To confuse the situation, throw authorities off his tracks, and delay a serious investigation into the matter, the prosecution maintains Merritt then drove the Mcstay's family 1996 trooper, which had contained the child seats, for Gianni and Joseph to San Isidro, where he left the vehicle in a shopping center parking lot, roughly a quarter of a mile from the Mexican border. Okay, but as you remember, the first account that was really big to the prosecution was that Merritt was such a gambler that he spent days and days and days. He took this money and just went on a gambling binge. How can he be buying materials which Kavanaugh had confirmed for this job that they were planning on working on? Gambling obsessively, and then finding that time to drive 100 miles out of the way, and then park the car, and then what? Walk to back home 100 miles. I mean, none of this is adding up. I mean, the more I read about this and the more sources I look at, I'm putting these pieces together and it screams, we don't have a case, but you're on death row. Sorry. So again, the case is largely circumstantial against Merritt. What physical evidence does exist in the case is not in all of itself implicative that he killed him. I mean, he very well is his partner. He saw him every day. He drove his car. Even if he moved it, have you ever moved your friend's car? Like if they're at work and they're in the middle of something, so they're blocking the way. Hey, am I moving my car? Well, if your DNA is found in that car because that person's killed the next day, you're screwed because you moved that car for that person that day to get it out of the way for somebody to pull in. You know what I'm saying? So there could be 100 reasons or 1,000 how much was it? $23,855. That's very slender evidence that's not physical. So, as with all the murders and crimes in general, the three factors that investigators must satisfy in order to establish viability in any individual as a confirmed suspect consist of assigning him to motive, means, and opportunity. Well, if they had this huge job coming up, like I said last night, Merritt would be, biting the hand that feeds him. He'd be killing his golden egg. Why in the hell, if he had a killing problem, would he do that? I mean, together with the tools, effects, and ability to carry it out, means, and if they... Now, have you guys seen Merritt? Alright, have you seen him? He's a little guy. He's not very intimidating. He may look a little pissed and annoyed because he's like, what the hell is going on? That's what I think he looks like. Like he's really frustrated at that point when I'm looking at pictures at him, but he's a little guy. And Mcstay could definitely have taken him on. His wife would have helped him. I mean, he wasn't like, did you do God or anything? So, like, again, he's not gonna show up at their house with a sledgehammer, so get in the car, and he's gonna go, okay, take my wife against you. Okay, he's gonna, it just doesn't make, it's not plausible. That doesn't even begin to make sense to me. So, in the case of People versus Merritt, many of the facts are vulnerable to divergent, varying, or even contradictory interpretation, and the prosecution, since the onset of the trial, has labored to illustrate that its interpretation of those facts and the cascade of events surrounding the murders and their aftermath are more reasonable and therefore compelling and convincing than the competing constructions and alternative theories of the defense. With regard to the motive, the prosecution maintains that it was Joseph Mcstay's confrontation of Charles Merritt on February 4th about checks Merritt had surreptitiously written. Okay, so from the business account, so they say they're prompting him to murder. He was prompted to murder him because he wanted to keep the larceny under wraps. Really, I don't think Mcstay was the type of person to go on CNN and say, my business partner is a thief. He stole $23,855 from my account that apparently he had a password to. Anyway, so the elements of the prosecution's theory, however, hinges upon Merritt having actually forged the checks in question. In seeking to establish Merritt did just that, the prosecution has relied upon peculiarities in the way the February 1st and 2nd checks were drafted. Of note, as that Joseph Mcstay for several years had two QuickBooks accounts for the Earth. Okay, so they did have two QuickBooks accounts together. That's what I figured. Enterprise, each of which was tied to separate email accounts. So what? The most frequently used of these accounts prior to and up to early 2010 associate with email. In drafting checks pertaining to his business, Joseph Mcstay's demonstrated pattern. He probably forgot the password for some reason, or it didn't work, so he used the other email. I'm telling you, it happens to me all the time. Like daily. Oh my god. his commissions, like I was saying earlier, which consisted of designing, fabricating, shipping, and installing the water. So probably Joe was like, gosh, I'm gonna lose my right-hand man if I don't get him on the straight and narrow. That's what it sounds like to me that talk was about. 2010, on February 1st, Joseph Mcstay's other QuickBooks account, the one associated with the email address, which had long lain dormant, abruptly transited into the platform. I don't know, that could be a million reasons. Or it may not have been him. Nobody's really ever saying that. When you write in QuickBooks, it's all printed. So, like, I was saying, my dad, he would, when I had my business, he would control the QuickBooks accounts. He has a stamp with my signature on it. If there was a stamp in the office with Mcstay's signature on it, then whoever knew about this QuickBooks account, maybe Kavanaugh, but maybe he only knew about the one that hadn't been used in a long time. Because remember, I'm going to tell you about this feud they had. So now they're saying he backdated it and all this. I mean, we had gone on with all this yesterday. There's 10 checks, I guess, created February 1st through the 8th. The prosecution alleges that were not created by Joseph Mcstay, but rather by forgeries by Merritt. Supporting that contention, according to the district attorney, is that the checks were all created using the QuickBooks account that tied to that other email address, rather than the account associated with the email address. So basically, okay, it's earthinspiredproducts.com, and the other one is, okay, one's customer and one's contact at earthinspiredcontacts.com, or earthinspiredproducts.com, custom and contact. That's it. Other than that, it is exactly the same email. So, now this, to me, means it could really have been anybody, because with this email being so similar, and maybe they changed it because when they had broke off their relationship with Kavanaugh, maybe they're like, yeah, maybe we should just in case, because like, thus the checks to Merritt are made out to Charles Merritt. The checks to Metro Sheet Metal are made out to Metro Sheet Metal. So, remember I was saying he was paying bills? Well, apparently that's what he was doing. Or, this is a telltale indication that Joseph Mcstay did not issue the checks. The prosecution maintains it and a giveaway that Merritt, I'm thinking the prosecution is really proving that Merritt is not the killer. So, whom the prosecution was sought to portray as unfamiliar with the use of QuickBooks. And maybe he was, maybe he's not the one who always wrote it, but Mcstay wasn't answering the phone and he had to pay these people because the job started the next day. There's a million reasons. So he's like, shit, I better get into the office and pay these people or we're not going to have the material in time. It happens. And maybe that's the one he remembered, and he's just like, okay, I'll write myself, I need money, so I need a couple grand, and then I'll pay the, maybe I need cash for other things, maybe a different vendor, who knows. Okay, so now they're portraying him as he's stealing this money, but yet he writes out money to this sheet company, metal sheet company. Mcstay became aware of the thefts. It doesn't seem like an embezzlement to me. I don't know. It's $23,855. We're not talking about a lot of money. I'm sorry. I mean, my car costs more than that, let's face it. What is $23,000? Why would you kill somebody for that, especially if you're in business with them and you've got big jobs coming up? I mean, it doesn't make sense. This is more proof of his innocence. So this guy, LaRock, he's got all these degrees, and he had been analyzing this PayPal data with Sarah, the gal who's from the PayPal department. And he was saying that apparently Mcstay had been utilizing a three-dimensional drawing program on his computer known as Google SketchUp, which had been accessed using the browser from 4:10 to 5 p.m. February 4th is the day the prosecution maintains Merritt murdered this Mcstay family. According to LaRock, however, the electronic data indicates that Mcstay and Merritt were in a cooperative mode relating to their shared water feature manufacturing venture after Mcstay departed Rancho Cucamonga, where he lived, following the lunch meeting at the Chick-fil-A, at which the prosecution claims Joseph was threatening to report Merritt's alleged check forging activity to agents of the law. In the afternoon of February 4th, there are several calls known as being made to Chase Merritt's phone. LaRock said it was reference to Joseph Mcstay's cell phone records. So maybe he was calling his friend because he needed help. While Joseph Mcstay's phone was in contact with the cell phone tower in Ontario, and another call was placed to Merritt at 3:32 when Mcstay's phone was in contact with the tower in Norco. LaRock pointed out at 4:18 another call was made to Merritt with Mcstay's cell phone pinging off a cell tower in Fallbrook, an indication that Joseph Mcstay was back at his house, and that at that time that call occurred sometime 8 minutes after the data from the e-machine shows Joseph Mcstay had initiated his Google SketchUp activity, according to LaRock. So he got home and he gets on there and he starts sketching. But now he's in a cooperative state with Merritt, designing, like, you can get on with each other and you can work together. That's basically what he's saying. Was made for 18 p.m. Call was made to Chase Merritt while the Google SketchUp activity is occurring, so they're working together. And why was that significant? That's significant to me because it looks like the user is traveling toward the Fallbrook house. LaRock began. So, objection calls for speculation lacks foundation. Overruled, judge said. Simply taking the location information listed here. LaRock went on over the different times. We see Ontario followed by Norco, followed by Fallbrook, and then working on design information. So SketchUp design program looking at house information design information. So it was the appearance to me of Joseph working on a drawing. Objection that calls for speculation says MS, preventing LaRock from following through with his observation that appeared that at that point Mcstay and Merritt were involved in a cooperative exchange relating to the designing of a water feature. Given the context, LaRock's suggestion was that activity seemed to contradict the assertion that Mcstay was on the verge of reporting Merritt to the law enforcement authorities. Judge sustained the objection. What? Where's his defense attorney? Oh, objection. I would have just jumped up and been like, why not? This is making a point. This is proving that there's no way he could be calling the authorities if he's in a cooperative state on a drawing program that's proven through technology. That means the two were not arguing, and there never was any accounts of those two arguing. Never. let's work on this. Let's get it together. I know you've got a problem. You know, go back to your meetings or whatever you have to do to get under control, okay? But, I mean, it wasn't millions of dollars. They had a big project coming up, so why would he kill his golden egg? And why would Mcstay be pissed at Merritt? Really pissed at Merritt for a couple grand. I mean, you know, okay. Alright, buddy, I get it. You got a gambling problem. If it were me, and this guy this guy does a lot for him. Merritt does a lot of work for him. It's not like he's a silent partner or something. I mean, he does the hard work. Getting the supplies there, dealing with all the, paying all the guys. It's not like he was late paying them or would steal that money. That would make me think, okay, now we got a problem because material wasn't showing up. None of that was happening. Then I would see where that Merritt was really causing a problem for Mcstay, but he wasn't. I mean, he just got him this big job. They've been doing jobs for 4 years, 5 years now, being very successful at it, making through the hard times, bringing out more jobs. I'd be like, okay, hey, everybody's paid. You're taking your commission check. It's cool, man. I mean, really, if you think about it in a daily life, that few grand or 20 grand, it's not gonna be, not when this guy does all the dredge work for you, pays all of your vendors, I mean, gets everybody there, gets everybody organized. I mean, basically, you just own the business, the majority of the business. Merritt was very valuable to Joseph Mcstay, and vice versa. I don't see any reason at all for Merritt to kill him. I'm sorry. I mean, the more I read, the less I think he killed him. So I don't know what the F the judge was thinking. And I don't know how in the hell the jury could not see any of this. Because if this was presented at the time, the jury, as it will go through what is going on, and they'll kind of role play it a little bit and be like, alright, can you really see this happening? I can't imagine not one or two or three people, like, why wasn't this a hung jury? Why was it so one-sided and like, let's kill this guy? I mean, this is not making sense. I'm sorry, they were too good for each other. That doesn't mean, when two business partners to have this much time together and not have any financial problems. It's not like Mcstay or Merritt did not put Mcstay into debt. He may have taken, some money that he was owed, but it doesn't sound like, he was egregious in any way. That, he paid everybody, he got everybody there, he got the work, he did a lot for this guy. So previous testimony trials established that the 8:28 p.m. call was the last call ever made from Joseph Mcstay's cell phone. Prosecutors alleged murders occurred at some point that evening following the phone call. With regard to that evening, Mullane asked LaRock, was there internet activity after 5 o'clock? He said yes. And what was that? There was an additional internet activity around the hour of 8 p.m., said LaRock. What specific internet activity you're talking about was significant in your opinion? A user on the computer logged into QuickBooks Online and activity there, responded LaRock, and there was data contained on the e-machine's temporary internet files that showed that someone had logged into QuickBooks Online 7:56 at the time. Mullane displayed on the courtroom's overhead visual monitors that read out loud the activity. So what is it we are looking at here? This appears to be a debit input screen for entering information for a check. This is part of QuickBooks Online. Therefore, another exhibit displays for the jury a readout machine. This is just another web page. Print checks. The file name is selected. Print 1 HTM. Is there a time that's associated with this file? 8 o'clock, 7:59. The next internet registry on the machine later testified over an objection by MS related to actuating the printing of the check. This is entitled Print Check Setup. Remember what I was saying? And I've said this in both videos. In QuickBooks, you have got, it's like a million questions and a million issues. You're gonna print a check. If this guy is more the labor guy, and maybe Mcstay was like, man, I just want to hang out with you tonight. Can you figure it out, please? That is not that uncommon. So he's there, gone. All right. Set up checks. Okay, I can do that. All right. Print checks. I can do that. I've got to print one for myself. I need some money. I got to print one for the sheet metal guy. Cool. All right. So he's probably going, okay. Refuted the prosecution contention that the February 4 check to Charles Merritt for $4,000 had been a forgery. LaRock pointed out that there was an accompanying screen to the one relating to the one pertaining to the draft of the checks that showed the amount of the money in the Earth Inspired products bank account upon which the check was drawn. It reads current balance of more than $89,000, nearly $90,000, said LaRock. Unlike the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department's computer analysis, Detective Jason Schroeder, who said he could not access the print spool files that were triggered with the effort to print the checks written near 8 p.m. on February 4th because they were garbled. But that's not what LaRock said. He said they were fine. He said, I was able to open these spool files to see. Okay, so he's saying they're just generic spool files, so basically they were just MD check templates. That's basically what they're. I was able to see what the contents were. The Rock told the jury he was able to draw a broader parallel between Mcstay's cell phone usage and his QuickBooks and check drafting activity, a significant element of which controverted the prosecution's narrative of guilt implicating Merritt. This is what I've been saying. Joseph Mcstay made a consistent practice of phoning Merritt shortly after writing him a check. What LaRock said was a pattern that I noticed. There's absolutely a correlation between the checks that are issued in the QuickBooks online records followed by calls from Joseph to Chase. I did compare the QuickBooks online records and the checks that were issued that were listed to Charles Merritt or Merritt, the Metro sheet metal. I compared that with the phone calls and the records, and I want to see if I noticed the terms of the call had been made to Chase after the check was issued was consistent. What I found was for the period of time which I had the phone records that the phone call was made to Chase every single time that a check was issued for QuickBooks Online. So now what this is saying, I have chills, is that every time Merritt had written a check to either himself or to a company or whatever, he would call Mcstay, and that's exactly what he did. Every single time, he said that it was every time. He's like, oh, I did it. So obviously, he was very loyal to Mcstay. This was true regard to the checks issued to Merritt on February 1st, 2nd, 4th. LaRock testified. Malay displayed the activity log for the QuickBooks account. So it showed that somebody operating from Mcstay's e-machine computer had added Charles Merritt as a vendor on February 1st. Malay drew attention to the capitalization and lack thereof in that entry as it was spelled Charles Merritt instead of capital. You had indicated a vendor that had been added Charles Merritt, all lowercase correct, at 12:24. This is just bullshit. I'm sorry. This is. Sorry, hold on. They are just. This prosecution is good, unfortunately, because they're confusing the jury. I mean, so, okay, I have done it. I'm sure other people have done it. If you switch email accounts, like say he had a defender and he couldn't, they had two email accounts usually going one, but if he added him as a vendor, maybe he also added an email for him as well, so he had his own email account. That's how much he trusted him. Well, maybe Merritt wrote it with a capital and Mcstay wrote it with lowercase. That's not uncommon for two people just to do two different things. Me personally, I would write all capitals. The job I work at now, everything is in capital. Everything. When we put it into our system. So, that is not how I probably would like to do it or have it done. But it is how it's done. So, sometimes I mess up. I'm not gonna lie. Only sometimes. Lowercase. I use lowercase. And sometimes I use a capital with lowercase just because I'm not thinking. And then I have to go back, which really pisses me off, and fix it. It does happen, people. This is not a conspiracy. This is called evidence that he's innocent. So, I mean, he was able to mine tons of data. And yet another prong of the prosecution's case in question. They were very detailed records pertaining to Merritt's work on features for Earth. Inspired products contained an electric folder with the e-machine. There was consistency between the QuickBooks entries Joseph Mcstay made relating to transactions. I mean, this is all. He was just basically saying all of this data that he mined tons, and none of it was inconsistent. The two were definitely good together. They were both detail-oriented, and whether they capitalized or did not, it didn't matter because it was even, and it didn't matter if Merritt had a gambling problem. He was still a good partner. Oh God, I mean, just, this breaks my heart. So, I read all this yesterday. Yeah, and then it goes into the fact, the revenue is 60%, 40% split. So, I mean, that much went to Merritt. So he probably was just wanting to be paid. Who doesn't? When Mcstay was paid by somebody immediately as the other person who's working for that person, I'd want my money. Who gives a crap if he has a gambling problem? That's his money. I mean, God, going back to 2007, 2008, LaRock recovered inspired product total income of almost $400,000, of which $224 was paid to Merritt. I'm telling you, this guy did a lot of work for him. And, 2009, same thing. The income of the company, $297, the majority goes, $158,000 goes to Merritt. Merritt's doing everything. another of Mcstay's family's household computers. And so it's a different computer, a Hewlett-Packard that was used primarily by Summer. According to LaRock, between 2:05 a.m. and 2:07 a.m., Google searches were run on the e-machine, which involved bringing up sites or activities that had previously been undertaken or visited on the computer, which included QuickBooks Online. The user ran 6 of the searches. My opinion is that the user opened Internet Explorer and used most likely this drop-down menu to click on the searches. Each of these 6 searches has been run in the past. Neither QuickBooks Online nor any of the other sites were fully accessed from the computer at that time. So maybe it wasn't Merritt's problem, it was Mcstay's, if his wife is checking up on him. Yeah, and there was a computer, like a factory reset, so maybe the wife was just kind of curious as to what was going on. I mean, Emily just kept undermining any of the primary elements of the prosecution. In this case, pertaining to the client's activities and alleged direct involvement in the murders. She must have just been he must have been just so verbal. And his defense sucked. I am just gonna say that. I'm really disappointed. So, I guess the defense was waiting to bring up who they thought was, instead of objecting and going, I guess, wasting the energy, stopping the trial. They wanted to get to the point, because this is a bunch of bullshit in their head. Literally, this is what the jury heard and convicted him of murder and committed him to. I'm really, really dumbfounded just at this point that any jury would go, definitely a murder. Everything was consistent. Yep, no, Mcstay wrote they made a call. Everything was the same for 5-10 years. He's the murderer. No. Alright, so I can see where the defendant's defense is just like, they have nothing. They're just, just grabbing for straws here, and they're not winning, because how can any jury see or think that this guy was involved in killing somebody when everything was exactly how it had been? Just because somebody at Mcstay's house in 2008 had, done some Google searches on QuickBooks, it could have been him, could have been his wife, who knows? He may have just not known how to write a check. Jesus, there's so many. And that was years before he was killed, so that shouldn't even been brought up. The perpetrator theory involving Dan Kavanaugh, finally. According to Mullane, as well as the other 2 members of Merritt's defense team, James McGee and Jacob Gerard, the individual best fitting the profile murder of the Mcstay family is Dan Kavanaugh, and the investigators in the case wrongfully focused on their client early on and failed to make a thorough investigation of other potential perpetrators. Absolutely. Once it was like they were just so busy that, oh my god, our guy, who cares? He's a gambler, whatever. Really, that's how I feel like how it was. Kavanaugh has a level of computer literacy, who has a level of computer literacy and facility with the internet, such as he is known to be as Dan the Hacker. Alright, so if you're known as a hacker, you know code, you know how to break code, you know how to get into anybody's IP address. You can drive down the street and literally get any information you want if you're that good, and apparently he was. So he was was assisting Joseph Mcstay. Now, remember, Mcstay had a lot of money in those accounts when he was paid, and there was a $9 million, job coming up for the two. So, don't you think that Dan the Hacker is like his little sticky fingers might be like, oh, that might be fun? Because, here's the thing. So, Kavanaugh's efforts on Joseph's behalf. See, Kavanaugh, he wanted to help him promote his water feature business. So he was a promoter, he's a computer IT guy, marketing the water fountains and artificial waterfalls by means of the internet, which included ploys to move Earth-inspired products website to the top of search engine listings. Kavanaugh's efforts to Joseph's behalf dated back before Joseph's arrangement with Merritt for the designing and completion of customized features. In large measure, before Merritt arrived on the scene, Joseph was essentially dealing in obtaining ready-made water fountains and water features available from wholesalers. So he was basically buying wholesalers' water fountains and putting them in. Why Merritt was so valuable to Mcstay is that he actually could design them himself with Mcstay. So they could really sell the big guys and the very wealthy. Kind of like, that show where tanks, where they go and they just build these incredible fish tanks. I mean, they did one for Shaq, and they did one, hello, Kobe Bryant, and I think, I have to go look, just for famous people, a rapper, I think. Yeah, because he had his name, in the fish tank, I don't know, in gold. So, for the service Kavanaugh was providing, Joseph had agreed to provide Kavanaugh with a percentage of sales made over the internet. With the initiation of the customized product line constructed by Merritt, Mcstay had continued to deal in prefabricated water features, paying Kavanaugh in accordance with whatever sales he made via the internet. So again, yes, this is before Merritt. And then a little bit after him, he still put in, if he could sell stuff over the internet, then he just had probably Merritt go install it. And that's how they all kind of worked together. So Kavanaugh is completely just the IT guy and the SEO guy and the guy that, drew the people to his site and, gave him quick business and kept him going for those years, when it was downtime. So, Kavanaugh. Alright, so now this is what happens. When Kavanaugh learned in the spring of 2009 that, so Kavanaugh, in accordance with whatever sales he made via the internet of those products, but he had not shared with Kavanaugh any of the revenue stream from the water features Merritt was delivering. Because now we're talking the big bucks. Telling you this is it. Right here, what I'm going to tell you. When Kavanaugh learned that he had no right to this was a completely different deal. Mcstay had promised him the internet sales. He gave him a percentage. That was his gig. Pre-manufactured. Merritt's deal was that he and Mcstay had created these amazing waterfalls and stuff, just, custom. And they were more money, of course. So Kavanaugh found out he learned in the spring of 2009, he grew very resentful and confronted Joseph over having been deprived of the percentages of the ongoing profits. Yeah, because he didn't deserve them. There was some degree of a back and forth between Mcstay and Kavanaugh over this, which included threats by Kavanaugh that would ruin the business. That he would ruin his business because he was pissed because he wasn't getting the stuff that really Merritt was bringing in, which was not his business. That wasn't his money to have. And route internet traffic coming into the Earth-inspired products websites to porn sites, unless Joseph agreed to cut him in on the customized product end of the company's activity. Mcstay at some point in 2009 agreed to buy whatever interest Kavanaugh claimed to have in the Earth-inspired products out. So now he's offering to buy him out because he doesn't trust this guy. He's scared of him. He's like, this guy thinks he deserves what Merritt and I are doing together. And Merritt he's the genius behind this. He's like, no, you're not, I'll buy you out though. I'll pay for everything you've done. I'll give you, a few $100,000 or whatever. Well, he knew that this business was going to go off big because that Merritt was good at what he did. Kavanaugh. So Earth-inspired, which was done by Mcstay, signing over Kavanaugh title to a BMW and making a series of payments to him, the last of which was due to be made at the time the family disappeared. Subsequent to the family's disappearance, now, remember, he's the hacker, Kavanaugh approached Joseph Mcstay's mother, Susan Blake, and Merritt, and the three became involved in an effort which also included Joseph Mcstay, half-brother Mike Mcstay, in keeping Earth-inspired products afloat until Joseph Mcstay made what was hoped would be Joseph's eventual return. Ultimately, Kavanaugh took well over $100,000 out of the business for himself and then owned in on the ownership of the company, ultimately selling it in 2011. So, he's threatening him. He's going behind his back to his brother, and he's taking out $100,000 for himself and then ultimately selling the part that he owned behind Joseph Mcstay's back. So basically, just kept the same business going on with his brother. Gertrude contended Kavanaugh had motives for killing Joseph Mcstay in the form of revenge and greed, which Merritt did not possess. The two law enforcement agencies that dealt with Kavanaugh on issues relating to Mcstay's family, the San Diego Sheriff Department, which was looking at the matter as a multiple missing persons case in 2010, and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which focused on as a murder investigation after the family's bodies were found in 2013, satisfied themselves that Kavanaugh was not involved based upon his claims to have been in Hawaii at the time of the family's disappearance. However, you remember, he didn't prove that he was in Hawaii, they just believed him, okay? However, this is the weird thing, and I just want to bring this up now that we're talking about this. So this man that absolutely hated him now, hated that he was making all this money, he was about to get a $9 million job. This guy who's in Hawaii, who doesn't like this guy at all, he gets off the plane, and a day later, he makes a call to the police because, for a welfare check, for them to do a welfare check on Joseph Mcstay. That's like my worst enemy wondering where the hell I am after they get off vacation. That doesn't make any sense at all. This case is really driving me crazy. So in 2009, 2010, Joseph Mcstay and Dan Kavanaugh had PayPal accounts which they used to both receive and make payments via the internet. The Rock was provided with records, the transcripts using PayPal system, which contained data relating to each individual transaction, the amount, the entity being paid or paying the amount of transaction. An IP address provides the location, the like I said, as known as the IP, which transactions are made, any IP address, it's like a fingerprint into wherever the location device is. With Kavanaugh's PayPal payments record 2010 displayed on the courtroom's overhead display monitors. So the IP address 66.91.7.2, that's the address, like everybody's has one. If you go to About, and if you have an Apple or Mac, and go to About, you'll see, Mac and IP address. So, on the computer Kavanaugh was using on January 14th, 2010, he had made 3 contacts with PayPal. Is that IP address associated with the region? Yes. LaRock said, what is that? The IP associated is in Hawaii. What about the next entry? Now, may I make this very clear? A computer genius can operate as if he was using his IP address is anywhere in the world. It is not that hard to do. That's what your VPN does, basically. A good VPN will bound you off everywhere, and he could have been in the United States or in China or in the in the middle of the Indian Ocean and said he was in if he's good enough, which obviously he was. Could be, say he was in Hawaii, you just use a tower there, knowing their IP address, and if there was a server, maybe he owned a bunch of servers since he had a internet company, and maybe they were in Hawaii, somewhere in Hawaii, so he just used that IP address. So it's impossible to trace, which is why a VPN will protect you, because it's actually bouncing off one server in different countries to another, basically making you untraceable. So, what about the next entry? So they're not even bringing any of this up. So it's a 12K day gap. That's right, LaRock said. January 26th is the next entry. 4:47 a.m. and now we have a new address. 70.95.69.75. What area is that? The San Diego area. The document showed that Kavanaugh having contacted with PayPal using IP address 9 times in total. January once on January 27th, 2010 using 7. IP address having contacted PayPal once on. Basically, is going on to say, I don't read every transcript. Jeez. We made a lot. Okay, so. So what they're saying is, then he begins using an IP. Okay, like I was saying, with a VPN, and if he has servers all over the world, he can route his IP address anywhere. Like now he's routing it through Washington and San Diego, LA. I mean, in cross-examination of LaRock, supervising deputy district attorney Brett and Amez attempted to erase the impression that Rock had provided relating to Kavanaugh's presence in the San Diego area at the time of the murders. So basically, LaRock had said, look, you're all over the place. You could have been in San Diego when you said you were in Hawaii, easily. But I really find it strange that 2 days after he supposedly flew back, that he made a welfare call to his good buddy Mcstay that he doesn't like, went by his back and insulted that. None of that makes sense. If anybody had a motive to do it, if anybody had a reason to do it, if anybody had the initiative, it would have been him. I mean, Merritt is an innocent pawn here, and they are just whipping him around like potatoes. I mean, I'm very disgusted. the pages from Kavanaugh's phone records, which MS displays shows 19 phone calls, 15 outgoing. They said that after which Judge Smith agreed to take judicial notice that the 808 area code patterns pertains to Hawaii. You know, but the same thing, if you're making a call, like you'll have a Google number, it'll look as if you're calling from your cell phone, but you're actually not, and it can be routed from anywhere in the world. You can pick any area code, and that's what it looks like you're calling from. I don't think Merritt's defense was tech savvy enough to understand all this, which really would hurt the cross-examination. It would hurt the cross-examination. It sounds like, they know that they aren't real tech savvy, and they're just kind of going for the jugular on this. And maybe the judge isn't either, because as a judge I'd be like, okay, let me see the records, the Google account, you have a Google number, I can make a Google number right now and I can say that I'm calling from Alaska, and people can think I'm there. And the thing then, because then he's, then three others reflect the 805 area code associated with, I guess that's San Diego or San Luis, and then Hawaii, and then again San Diego, and then San Francisco. So this guy's everywhere. And okay, here we go, LaRock. So at another point in the cross-examination of LaRock, MS explored whether a VPN could obscure the actual location of a computer user logged onto the internet. A virtual provider network will reflect an IP address for the network, not the device using the network, correct? Generally speaking, that's true. A virtual private network can be more complicated than that in general, but in general, yes. And that's what I mean. There are some very expensive, and I can put some up, I'll tell you that right now, like they're $2,500 a month, but this guy was a hacker, he knew how to do this, and that's what makes this one company that, we had actually talked to. I was like, I'm not paying that much money just so, our accounts are broken into, just use a basic VPN. However, there are some, they'll go all over every time you do anything. But yes, the idea is that, that's the very basic VPN kind of idea, but there's much more complicated, and that's where I think the defense had no clues to any. I have my master's in, computer IT, so I understand all this. I would be like just blowing up at this point, which I am. So, individual device, and there is a plethora of technologies to mask IP address and spoof IP addresses. I'm telling you, you can even become a ghost. I can't even begin, even when I was in law school, like, just the ID laws is huge, because it can be so complicated, and that's who needed to be a forensic ID attorney, should have been, for sure. That's too bad. Actually, I believe this is objective in this case, responded LaRock. Thank you. Inez noted that LaRock was used what he called subjective terminology in his report, such as the word notably, and the phrases potentially very important and especially significant, as well as good business relationship along with significant source of income. Using words like significant, especially, notably, these are subjective terms, aren't they? she is just spinning this into mashed potatoes. That's all she's doing. She's not even, there's nothing she's saying that is making any sense, but it's confusing the jury. And that is a good prosecutor. You want to confuse a jury to where they are like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, oh, he's definitely guilty. But yet they're not getting the truth. And that is what, I mean, how much are you getting paid? I mean, she asks these stupid questions. How much are you getting paid for your service in 2015? My company is charging $3.50 per hour, LaRock said. And how many hours have you been billed once? I mean, I don't have the exact numbers. I mean, really? I mean, why would they bring up his income? I mean, literally, he does, well, honestly, he says, well, I do about 350 a year, 350 hours a year. And so she says, oh, you make 122,000 since 2015. And I was disgust welling in his voice. Why? Does he not? I mean, I know prosecutors don't make more than 40 grand, but at least not here. So what? He makes money. He makes good money. Very good at what he does. He says, I don't know. That as I sit here. He says, I mean, I can try to estimate, why is this important? That's what he asks. I mean, she says, it's important to list the scope of how much work you've done over the years. And he says, well, yeah, I've done a lot. And so is that criminal? And so in the criminal world, you work for a federal public defender, the Orange County Department. Oh, okay, so now this is a personal thing. Because that pisses any prosecutor off, I'm sorry. So she's pissed that he's worked with so many public defenders' offices. He said, it's a portion of the work I've done, yes. So now she's just wasting time, confusing, making the jury tired, because she knows what's coming. She knows that the real issue is Kavanaugh, and she wants to tire the jury out, because remember, the jury are people. They're getting tired. They don't want to listen to anymore. The judge is tired. I can't tell you how many times a judge walked into the courtroom and looked at the guy, or looked at the attorney and goes, are you serious? You don't have your case ready? Get out of my courtroom. It's like, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't want to look at you. He's like, you're wasting my time. The next time you waste my time, I'm going to, suspend you from my courtroom for so long. And they do that. I mean, when I worked for a judge here in Palm Beach, was a common daily thing. Attorneys, prosecutors weren't ready. It pissed the crap out of the judges. They were just like, forget it. His case. Just because you didn't have your paperwork, it's being dismissed. And it would infuriate the, newer prosecutors, but it was what it was. So, I get emotional about this because I can see what's going on. I've been in a courtroom for hundreds of hours. So, he's like, the judge finally says, make your point. So, he's like, okay, well, so now everybody's tired. They're tired of hearing about the stupid QuickBooks. Kavanaugh, on more than one occasion, and on more than one secure desktop. The defense maintains it merits interaction with Augustine was a request to obtain the desktop program known as QuickBooks Pro and get it up and running, transferred the account data from the online program into it. Remember, that's why I said this originally. What I had said, had speculated in the beginning. I said, okay, well, maybe somebody was trying to hack in there and they decided to make a new page where they had some problems or couldn't get in or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but one of my this, okay? So I think I'm on the right track here, really, guys. I mean, I just think the prosecution, the defense doesn't know enough about ID, and the prosecution is really, they know that, and they're going after this guy. They're going for the jugular. They're tiring out the jury. They're tiring out the judge to the point he says, make your point. So he says, arrest. That did nothing. They believe me, what he said in the beginning, once he started talking about his income, the jury totally forgot about it, I guarantee you, and that was her game. It was a woman, I'm sorry. That was her plan all along. Talk about the important stuff, get it out of the way that could, that could have really made the jury think twice about convicting this guy, and then talk about his income. Why does that matter? And then she goes on a rant about him working for a public defender's office just before till the judge finally says, make your point. And she says, prosecution rests. Okay, so now everybody's tired and confused, and it's like, why is this guy even up here when he was up there? Because he had the proof really in everything he had that it was not merit at all. Everything was consistent. This is really sad. So, just stupid stuff about QuickBooks and so anyway, this defense brings another. He says, I couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Drawn said, it was all normal behavior. On cross-examination, now Rodriguez is up. When somebody would call into QuickBooks and get information, is it fair to say that the only master administrator could request that the company be deleted? That's correct. And so when somebody called in and gave the telephone number of Joseph Mcstay and said Joseph Mcstay was able to provide specific company information, the person receiving that call would essentially take that at face value, right? He said, correct. There was a call then on the 9th deleted some of that data, right? He said, correct. And you have no way of knowing whether that company had actually been transferred onto a desktop when the call came on the 9th, right? And he said, so what do you mean? He said, if that data had not been yet transferred, what does it matter? And Rodriguez said, well, people didn't always transfer the data and delete it, but it would be more unusual. And he's like, I guess. Basically, he's just confused as to what he's being asked. Again, where are the objections? Where are the speculations? Because this is, basically the prosecution is speculating to everything. And nothing is being said by the defense. It could have been Summer, his wife. One is like 600 pages long. And the guy says, you went through 600 pages. He says, when I pulled the accounts, I made sure they were all there. Yes. Every transmission. And then the prosecution says, but not in detail. I don't know. God. And then, at this point, Your Honor, I moved to strike her testimony. So anything she said, she says she's an incompetent custodian of records. Overruled, says Judge Smith. Present for much of this week's testimony was Joseph Mcstay's mother. She didn't have a statement at that time. Alright, so, hold on. It's not all I have. So, defense is stressing because, I'd like to know what I read that I was perfect, like, what I wanted to say without it being 1,200 hours long. Alright, so, for some reason, blindsided the jury with all of this bull crap at the end, and literally they just forgot what the hell he was up there for. And the judge did too. I mean, he just is getting the president of the jury lodged inquiries and leaves tried in protest. The defense team was failing to abide by the limitations that had been imposed on them in regard to the third-person culpability issue. So, I mean, they did not do this correctly. He needs a good attorney. If anybody can help this man is innocent. He's on death row. Just okay, so here's where Kavanaugh starts to mess up. And this is when the judge is like, everybody's tired and they want to go home. But Kavanaugh's whereabouts are really, 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 really. He purchases plane tickets to Hawaii, but there's never any boarding passes, and he never returns. Either way, he never goes and he never comes back. The judge finally just said, "You had your chance, and I can't let you bring any more into the courtroom." So he gets plane tickets to Hawaii, but he never boards the plane, and he never gets back on the plane for California. But the prosecution said, but he had tickets, so he could have boarded the plane and would not checked in. I don't think so. Authority or the TSA or anything like that. I did not. So there's no proof that Kavanaugh's even in Hawaii. Yet he's making all these transactions. And the thing is that every transaction, I can see why the defense was like jaw dropped when they said he was guilty, and not only was he guilty, but he was sentenced to death. This is my problem here. I mean, if a defense can't get a jury to believe him, that's one thing. I mean, I almost be better chance, I think, with the judge at this point, because the prosecution railroaded every single witness into like giving really good information, and then they just brought up all this weird and I can't believe the judge allowed this either. I don't know, but they just brought all this stuff up that, didn't pertain to the case at all. Like, what does it matter what the guy makes a year? And he goes, "Oh, but you work for this public defender's office in Napa." He goes, "Yeah, that's part of my job, but I do, another 250 hours of somewhere else. I mean, that's a very small part of my income." And believe me, the public defender's office, he's probably doing it for free, or he's doing it at a very lower price. Because whenever I would have to look up, specific special specialists, would have their price, and we had a budget we had to follow. I don't know what kind of budget they have in San Bernardino, but it must be a lot more than we have here. I don't think Merritt did it. There's nothing. I mean, they suspected that he owed him money, but they proved that he didn't, because basically he was the main guy. He got paid most of the money from 2005 and to 2010. I mean, if they made $400,000, he made $350,000. I mean, he was like, he did everything So I'd get my sources from absolutely the best sources, the best investigative reporters out there. Okay, so in a motion filed with the court, one of Merritt's attorneys argued that a business associate victim, Daniel Kavanaugh. Okay, let me start over. In a motion filed with the court, one of the Merritt's attorneys argued that a business associate of victim, Joseph Mcstay, Daniel Kavanaugh, threatened Mcstay and his family in an online exchange in January 2009 after the relationship soured. Okay, this is when he wanted to buy out his business, right? Remember, we went through it all. Those were all the court. I mean, I wasn't going to read the whole thing, but those were all the court transcripts where I wanted to show what the prosecution was doing, how they were just bringing credible witnesses on the stand, getting them to tell the jury what they wanted them to tell, and then completely changing the subject and just spinning it around. And those were, and I was just reading the court transcripts. There was like, then you can see where it was like, who cares how much he made and who he worked for? Like, you're just tiring out the jury and the judge. So, additionally, attorney said that Kavanaugh told another man that in November 2013, now this is after he was dead, that he knows how to make people disappear. So this is Kavanaugh threatening another person, and that they will find his bones in the desert, which is exactly where they found the Mcstay's bones. The family had been beaten to death with a 3-pound sledgehammer found in one of the graves. Okay, if you look at Merritt, he couldn't even hold a 3-pound. I mean, he's a little guy. He would be exhausted. I mean, he could maybe kill one of them, maybe the kid. I mean, I'm gonna say he's just not a big guy. Yeah, he did construction, but he wasn't. I'm not thinking. Honestly. The family had been beaten to death with a 3-pound sledgehammer found in one of the graves, and sheriff's investigations believe Summer Mcstay may have been raped before she was killed. Okay, now here's what I was talking about. According to the motion filed by attorney James McGee, on an online instant message exchange between the two men revealed Mcstay had offered to buy Kavanaugh out of business. Kavanaugh was not pleased. He threatened to destroy Mcstay's business if the demands weren't met. That's when he started paying him off and he signed over an $80,000 BMW to him. The message chain was saved to Mcstay's computer on January 29th. So this was all written down. The later you respond, this is what Kavanaugh says, quote, in quotes, quote, the later you respond and deal with this, the worse it's gonna be, Kavanaugh told Mcstay. On his online message, Mcstay responded, "Now, I, Summer, and kids know the real you and what you would potentially do to harm me and my family. You're a sick, great guy, Dan. Fucking sad." The exchanges intensified with Kavanaugh saying, "So now that you know how serious I am and what I'm capable of, this is Kavanaugh now. You can make a better decision how to end this." On November 23rd, 2013, soon after the Mcstay family's remains were discovered, Kavanaugh got into a heated exchange with another man he was doing business with in San Diego County. Kavanaugh, according to McGee's motion, agreed to design a website for the man's in exchange for him building him an aquarium. But Kavanaugh, according to the motion, never got the aquarium, so he went on to the man's business and told him that he had been done dirty and that he knows how to make people disappear. sheriff's deputy, and he filed a police report. So obviously this man felt severely threatened by Kavanaugh. Quote, here Daniel Kavanaugh recited specific facts of which describe the nature of this crime and the manner in which the Mcstay family was killed and buried. McGee wrote in his motion. So here's what really bothers me. Prosecutor's response. Evidence based on innuendo. Prosecutors argued that the evidence severely serves merely to confuse and convolute. That's exactly what they did. Confuse and convolute the jury. Every single witness. That was my whole lead up to this, because I wanted to show you that what the prosecution did, and then accuses them of confusion and convoluting the case by bringing in other witnesses that have been threatened, and by this very, very deadly man, very scary man that even Mcstay was afraid of, changed his accounts. But there had never been an issue with Mcstay. There had never been a problem with Mcstay and Merritt ever. The guy, he said, oh, he had a confrontation with him about him taking a few $1,000. No, I don't think that was a confrontation. I think that was more like, hey man, you gotta get together. I'm behind you. You're my best. We're a great team. That's what I think the conversation was about, because then they go home and immediately start working on a new project. That doesn't say killer to me. That doesn't say anything except for, alright, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna get it together, I promise you. I'm gonna show you we are good together, we got a lot of money we're gonna make. I'm gonna get it together, man. I mean, that's what it says to me. I don't know about you. Maybe I'm crazy. So, and was based on speculation and innuendo. Alright, so apparently these documented and recorded conversations where Kavanaugh is threatening to bury Mcstay's body in the desert and they would only find his bones is documented on Mcstay's computer before he dies is obviously speculation. I don't think so. The guy who he also threatened the same thing to, the same way that the Mcstay dies. He files a police report, tells a neighbor, calls the sheriff. He's scared to death. So this guy is not a pushover. He's scaring people, scaring grown men. So furthermore, the prosecution argued that much of the defense evidence that Kavanaugh postdates the commission of the crimes by years. Yes, it does to an extent, but what the threats that were made to but not the threats that were made to Mcstay. Those were made right then and there. They were on Mcstay's computer. He had that conversation with Mcstay. Yes, there was more threats later on. And the thing is, this is what really bothers me. Kavanaugh could not be reached for comment, right? Kavanaugh could not be reached for comment. Judge Michael A. Smith sided with the prosecution, concluding the evidence was speculative. Smith, however, did allow the defense to introduce DNA found at Mcstay's grave sites. On Summer, Mcstay's bra and other items in the two graves did not match that of Merritt or the four victims. That DNA has so far, that means they haven't gotten the results back, matched to Kavanaugh or any other person of interest in this case, damn well that somebody killed him. But it was not Merritt's. Okay, so you're gonna bludgeon a family to death, including the kids, and you're not gonna rape the mother. What is going? I'm sorry. This isn't how it works. I'm sorry. There's something else. This guy is innocent, and he is on death row, and I do not feel this way about anyone. I always am like, somewhere you're guilty. This guy was such an upstanding guy that everything that ID guy said, he said was exactly how it should be. Everything was documented the way it had always been documented. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Mcstay and Merritt did nothing, that the prosecution was alleging them that he did. So Merritt's defense team also will be allowed to present evidence showing that Kavanaugh transferred nearly $13,000 from Joseph Mcstay's PayPal account to his personal PayPal account within 3 weeks of Mcstay's disappearance. Some of that money was sent to Merritt to purchase materials to complete existing orders for Mcstay's business. Merritt had designed and built the fountains for Earth-inspired products. So Merritt was the backbone of this company, and it pissed Kavanaugh off. Prosecutor Melissa Rodriguez argued that there was no evidence to link Kavanaugh to the killings, that he was in Hawaii at the time of the family's disappearance, although he was never had a boarding pass, so there was never any proof, and he was an IT hacker. He could have gotten his phone calls, forwarded from there, and he could have gotten all of his IP addresses. It doesn't take it. The defense team just was not wise enough about, you really have to know your stuff when it comes to ID. I mean, I've got a lot of friends in ID, and it's possible. It is when you're a hacker like that. Hackers are a special breed of person. They're liars, they're cheats, they're out there to do harm. There's not a hacker out there, and I'm sorry if you're a hacker, but there's not a hacker out there that is there to do better for the world. There's not. That's not why people hack. They hack to get things. They hack to, break into people's businesses, their accounts. They're hackers. They're not helpers. I don't know. It's just sad. I mean, it does not rule out Merritt as a viable suspect in the case. It doesn't exculpate the defendant. Prosecutor Sean Daughtery said traces of Merritt's DNA were found in the Mcstay's trooper on the steering wheel. I mean, and he wrote a couple checks, which we had gone over. This isn't anything new. They're just, saying. They went at okay, so this is what really is funny. So he writes these checks, apparently more than $20,000, which, by the way, the ID guy had confirmed that it was after Mcstay had disappeared, I guess, but it could have been that he was just cashing them. It doesn't go into detail, it says he wrote multiple checks on Joseph Mcstay's QuickBooks account totaling more than 21 following disappearance. Okay, so this is where it confuses the jury. So you have to listen. Merritt also wrote multiple checks on Joseph Mcstay's QuickBooks account totaling more than $21,000. We had already discussed this, remember? Following the family's disappearance. Okay, well, he wrote the checks or he cashed the checks. It doesn't say which. So, but then he went on a gambling spree, authorities said. Okay, so he used his own money because, remember, most of the money in that account was his. So, maybe he was upset about his partner just disappearing and they had a big job to busy. He's not answering my calls. And that's what he kept saying. He's like, I wish I would have answered the call that day. I could have saved his life. He kept saying that. And he just feels like, his whole life is destroyed. And he's like, I just could have changed everything. So I don't know. Tell me what you think. This really bothers me, this case. There's not a lot of cases, and in my experience, I really have not found a lot of people that I'm just like, you're innocent. I never say that, but this guy is innocent and he's on death row, and it bothers me to my core. I just find that the prosecution and the judge are not, they don't care. It's like there's so many cases going in and out. Maybe that's the case, I don't know, but they need to bring in an expert, a powerful expert who's not going to allow the prosecution to railroad them at the end, leaving the jury completely confused. Like, all they're thinking about is how much money he makes at the end. That was the whole point of, like, if I were the defense, I would be like, move to strike. This isn't even, or, objection. This doesn't even have to do with the case. What is how much money he makes have to do with the case? Or tea in China. I mean, well, let's talk about how Sally met, Harry. How Harry met Sally. I mean, that's basically their strategy, and good prosecutors will do this. And it's just a strategy they teach you in law school, and especially, one of my friends is a great trial attorney. That is what, he sees it. He's like, here it comes, and he's good. He's great because he comes up there and he brings up all the stuff. See, and that's what the defense didn't do. As I read the transcripts, the prosecution never brought up to the jury ever again all the stuff that the ID guy said that was very important to the case, that was like vital. I mean, that was a main vein of the case. They never brought it up again, and they needed to. I mean, this prosecutor could manipulate the jury and the witness as a person on the stand. You really have to just answer the questions. So as strange as they are, they're allowed to ask any question they want. Now especially if it's not objected or moved to strike or whatever, or brought up again. I mean, they can ask a million questions, but I mean, if it's kind of leading, it's like you can't ask leading questions, and you can't ask but you have to ask questions that are kind of related, and the prosecution knew that it was kind of related, that he worked for these public defender's office, so he could be just, I guess they were trying to say that he was on the defensive side more than he would be instead of being in the middle. But that's not the case. He was just, you've got a list when you work in people that watches that are in, an investigation or in a public defense office. You've got a list of people that are specialists at their job, and you can go through them, and you go to your, the main investigator, and you're like, okay, I've got this guy who can do handwriting samples, I've got this guy who can do, ID stuff, and you just kind of go through and you see which one you can afford, what's in the budget. I don't know. And it sounds like, because he had a gambling problem, he probably did have monetary problems, so he didn't have the money to hire big attorneys. And I just, I really feel for this guy, as you can tell, because I have seen so many people that are person that's innocent. And you can see where the prosecution is just basically railroading this jury and the witness, and the defense is not helping. The defense doesn't know anything about ID. They don't really know what they're hearing. It's a bunch. The problem with ID is that you get an ID specialist up there, they're so technical. They will go, and that's what happened. He just kept talking about, IP addresses. Yes, that's basically, but good VPNs are not made to just go to one place. I mean, they are, not traceable, and there are hundreds of companies that are out there that do that. And if this guy was a hacker, and even, they call them something else, which is close to a ghost, very similar, then, like he said, well, his IP address during that time was also found in San Diego and in Washington State. So apparently he had access to those, servers in different places, that he could be anywhere at any time. And then, of course, nobody brought up any Google number that he could have had, that you can get any, or any kind of, there's other companies out there too, I know that, but nobody, if he had a company nobody's brought any of this up. Like, I'm thinking to myself, well, why was Kavanaugh in Hawaii during that time? How convenient is that? And why would he call the police looking for somebody he hated, couldn't stand him, and then 2 days after he gets back from his supposed trip to Hawaii, calls the police and wants to have a welfare check done? That doesn't even sound like him. It sounds like the guy, according to what everybody else said he did. I mean, literally, he went to these other people's places of business and said, you owe me money, and if you don't pay me, I'm going to put your bones in the desert. I've done it before. So why wouldn't he just go over to Mcstay's house and say the same thing? Why would he decide then to be like the hero and call the police and just looking for a welfare check? You know what I mean? I don't know. He's innocent. I really believe that in my heart. And I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but I could be totally wrong. But nobody's listening to very, very, very important details about the case to possibly prove him innocent. And there's no way he should be on death row. And even the judges, well, it doesn't really mean that he's not a suspect. Well, suspects are not on death row. They're waiting for trial. I don't know. Help me out, please. Thank you for all your subscribes, your views, your likes, your comments. I love your comments. On this case, just